Pessoal, hoje o episódio do lado I é I de internacional, I de inglês, né? A gente vai ter um convidado aqui internacional. Daqui a pouquinho vocês vão conhecer.
Primeiro episódio internacional.
Primeiro episódio em inglês, isso aí. Com legendas, ninguém vai perder nada. E agora a gente vai ter que fazer o favor de mudar para o inglês. Let's switch to English, so he can understand.
Thank you.
So, you're welcome. Today, we talk about selling and negotiating. We will discuss building commercial relationship and how to extract more value for both sides. We also talk about what's happening and what's going on globally with different industries in terms of commercial relationships. So today we have Mark Grice from Total Negotiation Group in the UK. So first, let's talk a little bit about Total Negotiation Group. So Total Negotiation Group is a partner for companies and organizations that need commercial transformation for building value relationships and negotiating better deals through capability programs and consulting. Yeah, but you will know more about this from Mark in a minute. So who is Mark? Mark Grice. He's the co-founder and CCO of Total Negotiation Group. Or TNG, as you say it. He's an expert in negotiation and with a broad experience across the globe in different sectors. Before co-founding the Total Negotiation Group, Mark worked in different industries, such as consumer goods, licensing, finance, and marketing in big companies such as PwC, Diageo, Disney, and Catalina Marketing. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to Brazil. Welcome to our podcast, right? So first question, that's an easy one.
Good.
Please tell us how and why you founded Total Negotiation Group, or TNG.
TNG. Let's call it TNG, just to be a little bit brief. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me on the podcast. Appreciate that. Why did we set up TNG? We set it up just over 14 years ago, myself and my co-founder, Mark Cranston. Yep. So confusingly, we're both called Mark, either confusingly or helpfully. We decided to set the business up in 2009 because we thought there was a really good opportunity to do negotiation training and development and advice in a more modern way. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of companies out there who offer negotiation training and support, but when we saw what there was out there, we had an insight into let's do this differently. We had both had a real passion about learning and development, so helping people to get better. Mm-hmm. And we just thought there is a different way to do it. And there were 3 or 4 reasons we did it. One, by making it more real. A lot of training is just lots of theory. Mm-hmm. For us, it's really important that it's practical, it's based in the real world, and you can see how you apply the learning straight away into real life situations. So everything we do is customized to real life situations. It's not just theory. Secondly, it's not just workshops. Most companies out there, they offer just a workshop, 2 or 3 days or 4 days. Mm-hmm. And they expect to change behavior long-term just by doing that. Mm-hmm. Doesn't work. Mm-hmm. We try not to sell just workshops because to change behavior in a long-term sustainable way, to get people better, you need to support them in a long-term sustainable way. So we design our programs. They're not workshops, they are programs. Mm-hmm. We design the programs around the learner's behavior and mentality. So we understand the client who we work with. What are their big challenges, their issues, their scenarios? We bring that into the program. So we make the material relevant for them. And then over time, we run workshops and then we follow up. So they leave the workshop with an action plan. And then they take that, we do one-on-one coaching follow-up, we do group follow-ups, we give them tools. So over time, they increase their theory. And as they apply their theory in a practical way, they then become better. So they add value to themselves and they add value to their companies. So for us, that sustainable way of doing it makes a huge difference. Mm-hmm. Just as importantly, the people who run the training, it's so important because me as a learner, I want to have respect and know I can learn from the people who are training me. Mm. So everybody we have who run our programs, they have 20 years of experience, relevant commercial senior experience. We make sure that the people who run our programs are better than anybody else in any of the other training companies that would see themselves as competitors. We have sales directors, sales VPs, managing directors. they are brilliant. They bring real life situations and they bring real life challenge and stretch. So running programs that are longer term, that are tailored to suit your learning and run by experts, that's a great formula to help people really develop their skills. And that's worked so well. So that was why we thought we'd set it up. That's what we've stuck to that. We've stuck to that since we started. And now 14 years later, we have a global business working with some incredible companies that we're really proud of. And
how many countries so far?
We think about 75 or 80 countries.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely. All over the world, from Chile to Papua New Guinea, from Taiwan to South Africa, from Canada to Croatia or to Denmark. So
and
all
Brazil.
over. And now Brazil. We are pleased to be very present.
Thank you.
To be in Brazil with a great team.
Good. Mark, considering you TNG, it's over 14 years in the market. When you started the company to now, I suspect the sales discipline has changed a lot.
Yeah.
To be a good salesperson in 2010 means that person is a good salesperson today, these days. What has changed?
Can I be a bit cheeky?
Yeah.
Please.
Because a lot hasn't changed.
Okay, good.
As a salesperson, if you can ask really, really good questions, that's still the most important thing.
Mm.
You need to be able to listen. Salespeople are not good at listening. You ask great questions, you hear the answers, the needs, because you want to know your customers' needs.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you if you ask them, but you have to listen. But you ask great questions, listen to what they tell you, summarize it, and once you understand their needs, then you can start to sell, because you link their needs to what you can offer them. You may not be able to sell to them. If their needs are something you can't do, say no. Go somewhere else. The customer will respect you if you don't try and sell them something they don't want. So it's not quite the question you asked, and I apologize, but I think it's still what is really important. And knowing the marketplace. The marketplace has changed and the context has changed, admittedly. But the actual basics of being a great salesperson, still the same.
Interesting. And technology, how technology affected the sales discipline, in your opinion?
It's a good question. Lots of different ways, because if you think about some areas of sales, technology means we can try and sell to lots of people at once. So outbound sales,
yes.
We can speak to lots of people. It becomes very broadcast media, which is a blunt instrument. It's not the best way. But technology also enables us to do more sales calls, because we're face-to-face today, but most sales calls nowadays are virtual. We can do lots more calls because we use the technology of being able to do that. There's a lot more data. We can do a lot more research. We can really understand what's happening. We can look at consumer data, shopper data, market data. That gives us great insight into what we think the needs are likely to be with a customer. So we can go slightly more proactive with our selling into a challenger type sale, where we turn up with what we think are the insights. I still think you have to ask what they think their needs are, but we can turn up in a way going, we think these are the needs, and provoke that conversation. So that'd be some of the initial areas I'd suggest where technology's changed.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I worked with the sales team in HBO for Latin America. And when I got there, the sales team usually the guys were so worried of presenting the catalog or the things that they barely listen to the customers. So I super agree with you in terms of a good salesperson should listen and ask more questions.
It's a question skill.
Yeah, it's a question.
It's the best skill of the lot, and it's really undervalued. And so I used to be in finance. I think you mentioned I worked for PwC. And when I first went to Guinness, I worked in audit. So not the most popular department. I went all over the world in audit.
But still have friends, right?
Not many. And the ones I did have cost money. But when I moved from audit into sales, which is a big move. They asked me, why do you think you can move from audit to sales? In audit, the best skill of the lot, asking questions. You have to ask questions to find the issues and the challenges. So I was able to show to the people, I am really good at asking questions and asking more and more and more questions till you probe to find the issue, that you can then find out what the challenges are and face into them, which is the skill for selling. But what we see, one of the primary challenges we see with salespeople, as you've said, is they create an amazing presentation. And I've worked in the entertainment world, and we've got some clients in the entertainment world. They create amazing presentations, the graphics, the animation. Wow.
40 slides.
At least.
For 50 minutes.
Music.
Music.
But it's, let me talk about me.
Yeah.
And they want to talk about me. But that's human nature. Because what are we most comfortable talking about usually is ourselves. As soon as I ask you a question, I don't know what you're going to ask. Well, if I ask a good question, an open question, I'm not sure what your answer can be. So I'm opening it up. The reason we ask closed questions is because we think we know the answer, don't we?
Yeah, correct.
So I knew you were going to say yes. So I get the answer I want. I've learned nothing new. An open question by a salesperson, I could go in and say, right, what do you really need today? What would be the best possible product? My worry is you could say something I don't know anything about. So we are opening up the issue. So that's why we rely on, if I tell them everything I've got and I can make it look good, I'm in control, and hopefully they hear or see something they like. So I'm relying on you to do the work, to pick something out of all these amazing slides and look at all these shows I've got. We're about to bring this new show from the US and it's proven. Why would you not want that? I'm just showing you stuff. I'm not selling. I'm showing you stuff. So I totally agree.
But Mark, and going back to his original question about the old profile or traditional sales guy, let's put it this way, and the new salesperson, right? The new sales guy. I have the impression that in the past it was more about relationship and having that connection, lunch, coffee, whatever. And now it evolved to that plus more technical skills, don't you think?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a Brazilian thing, obviously we're all Latins here, but
yes.
Do you think that that evolved, that has changed?
Yeah, because taking people out for lunch today is not enough anymore.
Yeah, and the demands are different.
Yes.
What do you think, Mark?
No, I think it's a really good, different point. Relationships were really important, and we call them kind of the softer skills.
Yeah.
Creating a good relationship with you as a softer skill, and that may appeal to you. You may like having a good relationship with me, and that makes you more likely to buy from me. That's great. But you're right, you also need to be able to flex into your harder skills, because you may say, I can only buy your product if it's this price, this margin, this payback, this volume of sales, this proof. I need quantitative data. That's the hard sell. You need to be able to flex between the two. In the old days, as you say, there was probably more relationship, and it's also culturally driven. In some markets, it's really important to go for lunch. As you say, Brazil, when I go to restaurants in Brazil this week, there's more people having lunch here. And I'm not sure who's got it right, because in the UK, we're eating sandwiches at our desk. So I think we've got something wrong there, because I'd rather be out having a good lunch.
There's still time.
But there is, but people are more sociable, and that's more, and it may be because we're in a city and the distances are shorter and more people are in offices. But there's probably more pressure in some of the more kind of UK, Europe, Northern Europe, probably places like Australia, the US, where there's more pressure to get results quicker. Whereas here, I think people take the time to understand the relationships. Going around this week, seeing how close the relationships are between people, I think it seems it's still really important skill. And so it's part of that salesman's toolkit. So I'm with you. I think there's also the need to be really good on your numbers now, more than in the past. But also to understand the market more probably and bring something different. Because competition's there, I think a lot of customers are looking to you to do some of their work for them. What's different? Show me some global insights. Show me some market insights. And because buyers are as busy, if not busier than they've ever been, the more we can help them do their work, the more they like us. So if we can provide some of that data. So I think turning up with data, turning up being very prepared, being organized, being precise, supporting them is a good new skill. Mm-hmm. And it's a skill that probably existed, but it's become more important. So I think it's a really good build.
And you said that today, or it's a reality today, not necessarily you are face-to-face when we are selling. Virtual or remotely became a norm somehow after the pandemic. In your opinion, what are the big differences to sell face-to-face versus like remotely or through a screen?
It's a really good question. It's something we discuss a lot. Very simply, and probably something you might not, one of the bits so face-to-face, you spend more time with people. It's probably more quality. Mm-hmm. Even little things like walking from the reception area to your meeting room, that's really important, high quality time to make an impression, also ask some quick questions, understand the mood, read what's the context of the meeting you're going into. It's super important. On a screen, you're clicking in, people are late, you don't have that opportunity to do the informal, just sensing the mood. And I think that makes a big difference. I think virtual only relationships are probably a bit harder. You have to work harder to get to know somebody through a screen. The best ones nowadays are probably a hybrid. So I've met somebody face to face. If we were to speak again now, I've met you face to face, we could have a really good conversation virtually because we've been able to talk about non-work stuff. And that's what's missing in purely virtual only relationships. Having said that, the efficiency of being able to do much more. And if I go back 15 years ago, I would drive to a meeting, I'd be an hour and a half in traffic, you'd be in a car park, you'd wait in reception, all of that's gone. So you can be more efficient. I can do 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sales calls in a day. So that efficiency helps. The technology, you have to practice and make sure you're good at it if you're going to do virtual. If you want to show slides, if you want to make sure that you make the best of the time and you know who's on, it's also more important to set some of the rules around video calls because it's hard when somebody turns their screen off. Because it's really hard to sell to somebody. It's like being back on a phone, which was always a hard time. So I think it's that there are there's a lot of pluses to being face-to-face still. There's efficiency, and you just have to be more prepared nowadays for some of the virtual calls. But that's how you have to do it. Not unfortunately, that's how you have to do it for efficiency, and it suits your buyer or people you want to interact with.
So think about Brazil. Talk about Brazil since you are here. You went to the game. He went to the game on Sunday, the stadium. You talked to people.
He's not looking impressed.
What?
It's the best game ever. Okay.
Best game, Palmeiras?
No, it's not Palmeiras. No, don't say the team. Come on, it's Corinthians, obviously. No. Jokes aside, but you went to the game. You talked to a lot of people. You went to some stores, different channels, and all that. Yeah. So what are your impressions about Brazil? What's similar, what you know and saw before in other markets, and different? Just impressions.
Yeah, let me talk kind of broadly. So we've been around a number of stores. We've met some clients this week, which has been a great opportunity. And I thank you for entertaining me, taking me to. We've been to Rio, so we've seen a little bit down in Rio. We've seen a number of the different channels, and I think I've been struck by the importance of cash and carry. In the UK, in Europe, in other markets, cash and carry is important. It's not the primary channel. Whereas here, you go into Atacadão.
It's one of the biggest one. Yeah. Atacadão.
An amazing offer. I mean, very simple. It's very, am I allowed to say basic? It's a basic offer, and it's designed to be, it kind of wants to convey the impression of value.
Yes.
And they do that brilliantly. They clearly do that really well. It's very successful. That's not really replicated in other markets. And that success and that growth, I mean, I think it's kind of replaced a lot of the big hypermarkets that have happened in the past.
It's already happening, yeah.
Which is really interesting phenomenon. A lot of the other markets that I will go to, said Australia, Europe, UK, North America, those hypermarkets are still in full swing. They are still big units, whether it's a Walmart, a Carrefour, a Tesco's, or Woolworths.
Yeah.
They have big GM big general merchandise offerings to bring up the margin. And the food and they have huge lines. The SKU count is huge. Whereas it felt like we were in a big version of a hard discounter where the line numbers are lower and availability is so important and price is so important. So really, really like that. I mean, I thought that was an interesting kind of channel that seems quite Brazil specific. I don't know how much it's happened across the rest of Latin America, but
not at the same scale.
Yeah. Then I think we've been into some other, the other end of the chain almost. We went into Oba,
hortifruti.
Kind of huge fresh fruit, fresh vegetable offering, which there are versions of that in every market. I mean, I thought the presentation was really strong. I thought the range was strong as well. But it was interesting, quite a different demographic shopping there. And this starts to play into some of what we've talked about, the omni-channel, the promiscuous nature of shoppers going into a lot of different channels and equally happy being in a cash and carry and being in a kind of fruit and veg place, but also being in convenience. So Oxo, this big, huge phenomenon that's come from Mexico with 20,000 stores.
It's invading Brazil.
500 stores in Sao Paulo already.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, my impression, it looks like a gas station without the gas pumps. But it is, it's like the little cabin that would be on the side of a gas station.
Fresh bread.
Yeah, but it seems to be, it's what we'd almost call a capsule offering. A small number of SKUs, really super important SKUs.
Yes.
They've got Red Bull. They've got the key soft drinks. They've got the key confectionery. They've got bread.
Beer,
of course. They've got the really core things that you want to buy every day. Yeah. Small format, and they're invading. And it's amazing offering. And it's everywhere. And I think that convenience of proximity is so important to the shopper now, to the consumer, not just the shopper, but they'll go there every day. So I think looking at, you've got convenience, you've got high quality fruit and veg, then you've got assortment. By assortment, is it Americanos?
Americanos.
I mean, that reminds me, for kind of the older people who may be listening or watching this, Woolworths in the UK. It's a very old brand that went into liquidation 15 years ago. It was all about confectionery, entertainment, DVDs when they used to exist. Stationery.
So I think it would be Sears in US maybe.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. But it's that kind of assortment where there's no barrier to entry. Everything can be replicated online. It's a tough market to go and do. I mean, the store we saw was big. There's a lot of inventory on the floor, but quite a lot of shoppers in there. And I gather they've had their kind of financial challenges. So again, another different part of the marketplace. We haven't been outside Sao Paulo and Rio, so we haven't been to the regional supermarkets. But so quite an interesting mix around what's on offer for the shopper that's evolved through. It's shopper-led. At the end of the day, every market gets shopper-led. The retailers can try and push how they want people to shop, but at the end of the day, shoppers and consumers will get their own way, I think. And I think that convenience that Oxo's offering is, the shopper doesn't want to go walk around big, huge stores to go and buy a can of drink or a piece of chocolate or some sweets or a beer. They want it right here, right now. And I guess the final piece of the jigsaw would be iFood. Because if you can't be bothered walking 200 meters to your local Oxo and you're in your apartment, you just iFood and it comes to you. So it's getting more and more, and people are starting to really understand the value equation. iFood will cost me more, but I'll pay for that convenience. I can go downstairs and walk to an Oxo. It's convenience. I'll pay a little bit more than I would in a store, but less than iFood. Then you go to a big Atacari, you have to go to a huge place and it's a big shopping. Well, there's no experience. There's no consumer experience, but I know my price is the cheapest. And consumers now understand that value equation between what they're going to buy and how much they're going to pay for it.
And having that clarity across channels is really important for the pricing strategy, right? So makes sense.
It's been really good. I mean, I've really enjoyed it. And I think we saw Azuca de Pau.
Pão de açúcar.
Pão de açúcar.
Sugar loaf. Yeah. Pão de açúcar.
And again, that was kind of more the kind of green grocery end. I mean, really beautiful presentation, quite premium, but probably struggling a little bit in the marketplace at the moment because it's trying to reestablish where it's
still big, but they're pioneers for a long time.
Yeah,
in being premium and the experience and all that. So it was great.
No, and you said a key word for me that it's convenience, and the pandemic times, I think, taught us about convenience, how important that is for if you want to buy milk or water. And B Corps like Nestle, Danone, and others are experimenting somehow this for a while, even on apps or trying to do this now. iFood, some are experiencing, for example, Mondelez, if I'm not mistaken, Mondelez tried with Eastern eggs, made a deal with Uber for delivery. So B Corps are playing not on their own, but through iFoods and Ubers and those guys.
Delivery option.
They'd love to go on their own and make that D2C connection and have those transactional websites where they can pull the data and create that direct relationship.
It's all about learning more about the shoppers, yeah.
And some of them are trying to do that. It's hard. I mean, Nestle for years has been trying to create through things like Nespresso, they've got some great brands to try and do it, but that's a bit of a kind of a place a utopia they want to get to.
Yes. Yeah, you mentioned Nespresso. I worked for Nestle. Nespresso, all the stores are owned by Nestle to guarantee the quality and the training and all this stuff. So it's tough. If you want to hold the quality and everything, you need to...
And that's what we see in other markets. We talked about Copenhagen.
Yes,
Copenhagen, the stores. Yeah.
Which is huge. I mean, you said, is that the biggest coffee?
One of the biggest coffee places.
One of the biggest coffee places. It's huge, and it's how does Nestle play with that and start to they want that direct consumer? And Lindt used to go through Copenhagen, and now in other markets, Lindt stores, they have their own stores and they can own the presentation. Back to the Nespresso stores, presentation and brand perception is everything. Totally. And they want to own it. So
totally. Nestle, from my days there, Nestle was thinking about or bringing a brand from Switzerland that was a more premium brand, or make an acquisition. And Copenhagen was like the answer. Copenhagen.
Mark, let me ask you about retail media. This topic was really hot in Brazil for some weeks ago. Actually, it continues to be hot. What are you thinking there? Is marketing going to the point of sale? Not about talk about trademark, about the marketing. Is marketing going to the point of sale?
To your first point around it's a hot topic, it's going to stay really hot.
Really?
It's huge. I mean, we've seen it. A year ago, I was in an exhibition in a big conference in the US in Florida, and everybody was just talking retail media. The big retailers, it's so important for them to get it right. It's a massive revenue generator. When you're looking at the revenue that's generated by Amazon nowadays through retail media spend is billions and billions. We're seeing it through
in terms
Walmart.
Of percentage. What is of the total pie retail media? Would be a 10-20% of?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like to.
This would be interesting too.
It really would be, because everyone's doing it. So across the US, it's a big offer for Amazon. Walmart are doing it. Walgreens are doing it. We're seeing it across Europe. We're seeing it into Australasia. You're talking about it here. The biggest challenge for suppliers is, where do I pay for that from? Because if I'm a big brand, the retailer is telling me that, well, you can put your brand right in front of the shop. I mean, that's pure. You're not getting the wastage of outdoor media, big kind of 48 sheets. You're not getting the wastage of TV. It's pure. Your shopper is in store and you can speak to them. Brand marketeers are not on that journey yet. Do they really want to give up their TV monies and let the account guys give it to retailers? It's a huge fight internally, which the retailers are really fueling that fight, because they want to get their hands. Because some of those brand budgets, as we know, if you go down the P&Gs and Nestle's of the world, it's billions and billions of pounds that if they can take that into retail media, it's perfect for retail.
Yeah, and that would be my question. Who holds that budget, and about agencies?
Well, agencies has to get in this game.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
And they are doing, and they're partnering with retailers.
Yeah.
So you're having retailers and agencies partnering together to sell it, because retailers are not great at selling advertising. It's not their core strength. So they bring in agencies, they're on a commission, they're pulling in, they're linking it to loyalty card, they're linking it to shopper data.
To measure and all that,
It becomes a really potent package to be able to kind of, you spend the retail media here, we'll show you what the payback is.
It's interesting. The challenge would be how to really use that money, not only for tactical moves like pricing, promotion, all that, but also for brand building at the point of sale. So
the question is the shopper available to have brand building when they're shopping? That my view would be they're not in a brand marketing space or in a trade marketing space, to your point. They're in an execution implementation mode. I want to go in and buy. I don't want to walk into a store and go, right, please just play to me great brand adverts. But it's a mindset. And this is why cinema still has a place, and TV has a place, and outdoor has a place, because if you can get the media mix right, that's how you change brand perceptions and build brand perceptions. And I think I worked in media for a couple of years, and thinking about the different ways you appeal to the shopper, to the consumer, who are different a lot of the time, it can be a real challenge.
Totally. Mark, I know you had a lunch with some clients, and you discussed some global trends and things that you saw in other markets. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to share some of the trends that we're seeing globally. And I think if I pick out 2 or 3 of the ones we talked about, we talked about loyalty. So there's been a huge drop off in consumer loyalty towards brands. And I think that's been fueled by, you mentioned the pandemic. I think it's been fueled by the lack of availability for at least the first year or 2 of the pandemic. If people wanted a beer, or they wanted chocolate, or they wanted a product, if they couldn't get their favorite brand, would they forego a beer? Would they forego a chocolate? No. Substitutability came in. Then, as we've seen hard on the heels of the pandemic, we've seen price. So there's been huge inflation, cost price inflation for a lot of different reasons. Again, if the price is getting too much for me, do I brand switch to something? Do I brand switch to private label or to a tertiary brand? We're seeing more of that, which means that whole loyalty, brand marketing is going to have to work harder to retain some of those shoppers, because loyalty is absolutely fallen. And there's some great stats around kind of the drop off in that. We're also seeing zero growth. I mean, units are dropping. We are seeing all over the world, unit sales are dropping because of price, because of demand, because of people tightening their belts to suit their personal economic, their economic situations. So because of that lack of growth, we're starting to see that retailers are going to have to take different strategies to try and grow, because everybody always insists on there being growth. If units are dropping off, we can't raise prices, because a lot of brands are at the top end of their price elasticity at the moment, because we've put through the price rises. And that becomes a challenge. So what do we do to help retailers to make sure they continue to grow consumption? Because that's what's really important. An interesting one we talked about was Zero Valley. Consumers and shoppers are becoming more comfortable with both scrimping and saving. Scrimping and splurging, I think we use the phrases. They're English phrases. Scrimping is going cheaper, so going economy, but splurging is treating yourself. And I think one of the examples that we've seen a lot around the world is people will go and buy big, bulk and cheaper for things they're less worried about, either tinned goods or big kitchen rolls or things like that, bulk items that, do I really need a brand there? Can I just go and buy 96 of them or something, and I'm saving myself money? If I can save myself money there, I can then go and treat myself to go and buy meat at the local butcher's that I know has got better provenance, or go and treat myself to a better type of beer or whiskey or something like that. So we're seeing that you don't want to get caught in the middle as that middle of the road, middle of brand it's not cheap, it's not expensive, there's not much to it. So we're seeing those kind of People are going cheaper to go and get value and create it, or they're going higher to really treat themselves. Because undoubtedly, when you look at the very top end and premium, that's still thriving in a lot of areas. The top whiskey in the world is still selling. Mm-hmm. Some of those, the ultra high end stuff is really still selling. So there is money out there, but smaller numbers, very, very high premium. And the fourth one just quickly was, we called it zero boundaries, was that whole omni-channel. Consumers are much more comfortable with that multi-channel format. They're happy looking anywhere and comparing and operating and becoming almost channel agnostic. I don't mind where I am, but they're more channel savvy. So that it's back to what I was saying before. We'll pay more for that super convenience, but pay less if I've got to go and do the work for it. And I think that whole kind of omni-channel piece it's such an important part of anybody's strategy right now, to show up for your brand and to show up with the right pack, the right format, the right price in all these different formats, whether it's online through an Amazon. And I think the stat I used was, I think 50% of all searches are on Amazon nowadays, not Google. People are searching directly on Amazon. So you've got to be showing up the right way in Amazon all the way through to showing up the right way in a big cash and carry or a supermarket. So I think the lack of boundaries is dictating the need for really serious, well thought through, consistent omni-channel strategies.
And talking about channels, how is your view about e-commerce? Because e-commerce still is a big thing, but at least my perception, or maybe do retail media that is taking the lead in terms of conversations, e-commerce is a bit down. What's your view about e-commerce in terms of, have we reached the fair share of e-commerce in e-commerce?
In Brazil or globally talking about?
No, globally.
Because in Brazil it continues to grow.
Yes.
So, yeah.
But I don't see the same heat in terms of discussions about e-commerce. Not sure if companies are satisfied or not. What's your view about e-commerce?
I think it's a good question. I think personally, I get the sense it's still settling down a little bit, because there was that massive rocket launch during COVID. Massive kind of through the roof.
Helped.
Yes.
And then as it settled down, it feels like it is settling down more. I don't think the huge speedy growth is still there. I would agree with you. I still think it's an important part of everybody's strategy, because it's the store without walls. So you can list all your products on there. So I think it will continue to grow. And I think as there are more and more adopters of that as a channel. Listening to one of our colleagues, he just says he does all his grocery shopping online now. And he's not a typical demographic for that. No. But I think the convenience of I can get it all online and delivered to me. I think there are more and more adopters as people try it, enjoy a convenience, enjoy some good experience. I think it's also quite category or quite category specific. There's some categories that people are more comfortable using e-commerce. We see in the UK, some of the clothes retailers, they will do anything for you to buy online, free returns, just buy it, try it, send it back, all free. It's because they know there's a barrier to, you can see something on the screen, but you can't feel it. And I think with the same with food, I think there's some food that people are comfortable buying. Fresh meat, would you buy fresh meat online? It's a hard one. They are. There are some great retailers out there that have got some real. It's all about the brand
and the equity or credibility that the brand has.
So I think it's a vague answer, but I think it will continue to grow. It has to. The efficiencies, the desire to operate in there, particularly when you look at where consumers are located, because as people, there's been a move with pandemic. There's been a move in some countries for people outside cities. So therefore, they're more distant from the stores, from the bricks and mortar. And I think there's an ongoing balance. Is bricks and mortar, does it have a role? So as soon as you hear Amazon opening stores, you're going, your initial whole thing was you're making the bookstore redundant, but then they're opening stores because there is a place for stores. People like to try, and everyone has their own different styles. So I think there's always going to be a role. It's going to continue to grow. I think the pace of it is probably to be determined. I can't give you more a specific answer, because I think it's a fascinating area to study and watch.
And there's a big implication about the role of the physical stores, because they are changing indeed, right? if you think about shopping malls, the mix of stores they have there has changed, at least in Brazil over the years, because of that. So people prefer to buy online specific categories, and the store is more about a place for experience, to try things, to see and touch, and things like that. So.
No, and when we talk about e-commerce or online, we usually think about like a physical goods, but let's evaluate a bit about banks, for example. So bank agencies in Brazil are disappearing, closing.
Because, same in most countries.
Yeah, pandemic has made people used to have an app.
Actually, they're turning the agency into coffee shops.
Right? Yes, in a relationship place. So it's interesting how things are moving, and we barely notice sometimes.
Mark, about selling and negotiating, is that something specific just for the commercial team? What about the rest of the organization? Is that unique to the commercial team?
Definitely not. Everybody has a role to play in selling and negotiating. What we see is it takes the whole team to equip the sales team. The sales team are usually the ones having the main conversations with their customers, but it takes marketing to understand what are those conversations going to be like. How do we best equip the sales team to have those conversations? So understanding the selling process means that they can adapt what they have to really in service of that. Getting the finance team involved, thinking around what's the implications, how will I flex in my selling and my negotiation so that we get people aligned up front. So for me, it's a cross-department, multi-function effort to make sure that we turn up in the most prepared, smart way to the customer to try and give them what they want in a way that we have aligned internally the best possible thing that we can do for them. So it's not just a sales team. The sales team are the message deliverers. It's where it comes together, but we need category and shopper and trade and marketing and finance and logistics and supply to all understand what their roles are to be as efficient as possible to help create the best possible sale.
And the more they understand, the more integrated the teams will be and the solution, right? And support and all that, including the ownership, right?
So, definitely. And I mean, we saw a lot during, as the prices went through the roof. I mean, I know cost price increases are a lot more common in Brazil due to kind of inflation. But as we were working with clients putting through 2, 3, 4 cost price increases a year, we were helping them work more closely with their procurement teams because as they're buying raw materials and the raw material costs are going through, if the sales team can see what's happening, when the sales team is then speaking to their client, to their customers going, these prices are really going up. If they've got visibility of that, then you become more authentic. And you just, honestly, I've seen how hard they're struggling to kind of stay on top of these costs. And by putting them back to back, you can then make sure that you're kind of the value chain's working in a really smart way.
Cool. What have been the key challenges you guys have been facing these days? Without like naming any clients, but what are the more common or typical like challenges companies are getting to you and say, "Oh, help me"?
I think general talent development, capability development. I reckon I've had a conversation around retention of staff probably 10 times in the last 12 months with big companies who go, do you know what? We are either the turnover of staff is growing or people are not feeling developed and valued. So we've been asked to create a number of academies, long-term academies to develop people internally to either help with succession planning, build expertise and skills internally, or just generally upweight the skills of teams. Because there's just, it feels like there is a dearth of capable people right now. Commercial capability just feels like a miss. So that's a big challenge. We've had that twice this week in conversations with clients. I'm seeing it all over the world. So we've been asked to develop more and more academies just to take people through a 2 to 3 year journey that people feel they're being developed, they're being invested into, and which is the right message. You want your people to feel they're being invested into. So that's a big challenge. We see, go to market. particularly in Brazil. So it's clearly not just me who doesn't understand how the Brazil kind of some of the route to market strategies work, but a number of clients we speak to are, do you know what, I'd love you to help us with this rapidly changing route to market, because it's changing almost too quickly for me. Can somebody come in with an objective view, excuse me, and just help us make sure that we have the right products, the right formats, we're focusing on the right channels to create the right profitability. And sometimes we shouldn't be in a channel. There's always a natural tendency to want to sell everywhere. Do you know what? Don't do it everywhere. If it's not going to be profitable, unless there's a really smart strategic reason, then don't do it. So go to market is huge. And I'd extend that into some of the distributors. We've got plenty of clients who are in tough distributor agreements right now, where they are either too small a part of that distributor portfolio, or then the distributor's not evolving with some of that omni-channel strategy that we talked about. So go to market, developing academies. And I think there's a category piece, particularly in consumer goods. Categories almost been forgotten with the pandemic, with availability being a big thing for 2 years, cost price increases for 2 years. We're now seeing with the slowdown in unit sales. Do you know what? We need to go back to the category strategy. We used to do that 5 years ago. Remember that? We need to dust that back off, and that's probably our second or third fastest growing area at the moment is category leadership. How do we re-establish ownership of the category, be innovative, come with solutions to retailers and start to help them grow those unit sales? And also, I mean, we've talked quite a bit this week about procurement.
Yeah.
We have a great procurement team, and they're able to help people really get hold of some of the raw materials costs or other different areas. Procurement's an oft forgotten area that we don't put enough focus into as businesses, and the more we can focus into them, there are savings to be made there. And those savings go straight to the bottom line, which is
makes
what
a
we
big
all want.
difference, right? That's clear. Mark, here at Olado E, we talk about mindset changes, disruption, transformation, right?
Yeah.
What advice would you give to the leaders, not only commercial leaders, but leaders in general, in terms of being open to the commercial transformation?
I think as a leader, you have to have an open mindset always. Okay. Because if you are too focused and too driven to a particular target, then you're not open to seeing changes and the dynamism that happens in the marketplace. So I'd always say you have to have that open mindset. In terms of commercial development, commercial transformation, we're in a fast changing marketplace. There's volatility out there, there's uncertainty. I think it's important to be clear on what you're trying to achieve short term and long term, and have those goals. And the best leaders do have those goals. They know where they want to get to. What's the role of people to help in that transformation? Because at the end of the day, it's the people have to help you make that transformation. So how do we get the people on the journey? By a lot of open communication, a lot of setting the vision and setting the journey, and making sure that people really understand the why. And for me, we see it in training, we see it in development. If people don't understand the why, then they can go along with it for a while, but you don't get the hearts and the minds with it. And I think it's really being clear on the why we're trying to do something, and then being open to taking input in the right way to make sure that we transform to get to the place that we want to get to. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Totally.
So no, before the last question, one of the things that we discussed at the beginning of the conversation, and you quoted now about this war of talent. If I'm running a business and like people are leaving, what is behind that? Because development I understand, but it's long term. It's about compensation. What is driving, or what is not driving people to stay?
It's a good question. I mean, we focus a lot on consumer goods, and I think previously the brands have held a real luster. People want to kind of work for big brands. Nowadays, there's lots of other industries that are just as exciting, just as flexible. And I think it's you say it's around developing people. There's a rewards and benefits piece. There's a succession and development plan. Do people know where they're going to go? Are we setting out the right pathway and vision for them? Because if I can see my ambition can be fulfilled inside an organization, then I might well stay. If I don't know where my ambition can be fulfilled, then I'll go somewhere else. The grass is often greener. So again, I think the transparency of organizations is really important. But also try and be authentic in how you work with your teams. It's great having fresh fruit and having table tennis tables and that kind of modern and putting yoga classes. That's okay. But what do people really want? And it's a hard one at the moment because people may say I want to work at home every day. But is that the best thing for the company as well as the individual? We've spoken to a lot of people in the last few months who are desperately trying to get the balance right between working styles. Because having people in together, being face to face, the energy, the value add is huge. But spending hours commuting every day is also is dead time. How do you get that balance right? And I think that's a big factor for people nowadays because there's a lot of the workforce has come into a lot of people have come into the workforce in the last 4 years and are now used to almost fully virtual working. So changing that again is hard.
Yes.
So, but you need to make sure that you are doing the right thing there. And again, if you want people to be in the office, why? What's the benefits of being in the office? What's in it for me? And again, it's that openness, the why piece is really important. So there's a whole package of things we need to get right to develop our talent and keep our talent, because at the end of the day, if we have great people, we can do anything. And for us as a business and lots of other businesses I'm associated with, it's all about the people. If you get brilliant people in and then empower them and support them and develop them, then that's a huge part of how you're going to achieve.
Great.
Mark, we have a big one to finalize our conversations. That we live in a fast-pacing environment, world, society, etc. So we keep facing discomforts every day. Tell us a big discomfort you face it in wherever, life or work, till today, that made a big change on you.
A discomfort I faced that then I made a change as a result of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Philosophical question.
That's good. No, it's for me, it was around doing something you really enjoy, because you can go and work and do a job and you can get by, but you can't really be yourself until you go and do something that enables you to bring out the best in yourself and enjoy what you're doing. It's no coincidence that you're good at the things that you enjoy doing. There's a very, very direct correlation. So for me, it was around making sure that work, which is a big part of our lives, was around doing something that I really enjoyed, so making the change to make sure, and that's happened 2 or 3 times. Working in finance, hated it. But it's a big step to then go, right, I'm going to change this up, either change company, which I did, but then also further down the line, move into something that I thought was more me, which was sales. And it was great. So it was facing into the discomfort of, I can carry on doing finance and you get paid well, but that's not me. It's not fulfilling yourself. It's not being true to yourself. And again, setting up this business, it gave us the opportunity to go and do something we wanted to go and do and enjoy it. And for me, that was around, I didn't want to be fully comfortable, because I think if you're fully comfortable, you're not your best, because you always want to be seeking to be better. Personal view.
You keep complacent.
Yeah. You don't want to be kind of always, never comfortable with anything, but you don't want to become complacent. You always want to challenge yourself. And that's why the business that Mark and I set up and we're now part of running it's very different than what we probably thought we would create 14 years ago. But things evolve, things change, and we're fortunate to work with amazing people across so many countries and be able to work with incredible clients and do some amazing work. That wasn't our vision then, but you've got to be flexible with your vision. You can be very focused on short-term goals, but we've always been flexible, and the output is something that we're both incredibly proud of. The size of the business, the people we work with, the work we do means we are very proud, but we know we can still do better.
Good.
Mark, thanks again for your time.
Thank you.
Your openness, your honesty. It's great to have you here.
Sorry. Developed a cough during it, but no, thank you. Really enjoyed it.
No, I hope you come again. And then maybe you can have a second chapter of this conversation.
Yeah.
No, really enjoyable. Thank you both.
Thank you. Obrigado.